name is Renee Robinson here on behalf of FinancialJuneteenth.com. And today I'm interviewing some of the residents of Poeplestown whose neighborhood is under serious pressure from the city to sell. Under the guise of eminent domain, the city would like to build a pond to combat flooding, as they say. So here joining me are some of the residents, Ms. Washington,
Sharice,
Ms. Sharice, and the Dardens. And so first, let me start out by asking you all, first of all, how long have all of you lived in Poeplestown?
I've lived here for 23 years.
Okay.
I've been here 5 years.
And we've been here 25 years.
Okay. And so first, let's start out by tell me something about all of you all that people may not know.
Well, I'm a retired city employee. I do transportation service for MV Transportation now. I've lived in this neighborhood for 25 plus years. My family was raised here, and this is a neighborhood that I've seen grow positively in the 25 plus years that I've been here, and it's a real nice neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood that people like to come to, and it's a neighborhood where I want to stay. And the city decided they don't want me to stay, but my plan was to stay. I know they want to build a park and a pond. Well, they can build it, but build it around me. For the ones that have gone, fine. That was their decision, and I'm not mad with them. But for me, I want to stay. And that's my intention, and that's what I'm going to fight for. And I'm not saying that they can't build a park, but as I say, build it around me. Let me stay, and let Ms. Washington stay, because so far we're the two that's on the end. And if they can make a decision to let Ms. Maddie stay, then they can make a decision to let us stay. And I'm happy for Ms. Maddie. I think it's unfair for her to be able to stay, and we not. So that's what we're fighting for. I do believe that we will win if we persevere and see it to the end, because you can't win a fight unless you stay in it. We are planning on staying in it, and we're planning on winning. We will be successful. I really believe that. And this neighborhood is upcoming, and it's a neighborhood where people would really like to stay. And we see the changes that is made, the positive changes. But for some reason, they don't want us here. But I'm planning on staying. I've been here, and I've seen this neighborhood grow, and I helped to be a positive influence in this neighborhood, and to make it, to help make it what it is. And I'm planning on staying here. This is where my family was raised. Grandchildren, this is where they like to come back to. The children want to come back when they all of them out of town now, and they got their own families and they live in different cities. But this is home. And this is where we are planning on staying.
Okay.
And with God's help, we're going to be here.
All right. And Ms. Washington, what does the neighborhood mean to you? Or what does Poeplestown mean to you?
Well, I think it's ironic that the name of the city or the community that we live in is Poeplestown, because it could be any place in the United States. It's a neighborhood, it's a community. I've been here 5 years, and like Mr. Darden, I plan to stay. This fight with the city started about 2 years ago. There was some flooding on one end of the block and in some other areas of Poeplestown. And I do believe the city just, in response to some flood litigation that we weren't a part of that stemmed from some flooding in 2012, they just decided that the response to the problem was to actually take the block. And my house is 91 years old. It has never flooded. I have a full basement. There's no evidence of flooding. I have a registered survey that says, and I'm not only not in a home that doesn't flood, but I'm also not in a flood area. And so, the city is using the pretext of a flood to take property because they want to develop it. And so and they're using the threat of eminent domain to justify taking it.
Now, explain what eminent domain is specifically as it pertains to the state of Georgia. What is the Georgia law for eminent domain?
So there's a portion of the U.S. federal constitution that allows for takings of property for public purposes. And in Georgia, that public necessity cannot be development. So the city and municipalities can take property if they are going to use it for a public necessity to address flooding or to create an entranceway, a road, which is why the city has created or fabricated this flooding issue and made it seem as if it's the whole block, because that allows them to make an argument about public necessity, but they're going to have to deal with the reality that many of our homes don't flood, so there's no public justification. We suspect that the development is, behind the city's plans.
Now, what is Poeplestown close to in terms of major landmarks?
It's centrally located. I mean, we are 5 minutes from the zoo, 5 minutes from a beautiful park. We're 5 to 10 minutes from Turner Field, where the Braves play. Minutes from downtown, minutes from all of the major highways. It is a choice spot. It is a neighborhood in the middle of the city, right? So you get all the amenities of the city and access to the city, but you live in a neighborhood with trees and parks. It's beautiful. And people, that constitute a community. So it's a really wonderful place to have lived for the past 5 years.
And just to clarify for the audience, so when cities or municipalities take land for a public use, it could be for a hospital or for a road or for a school, something that is supposed to be for the public good, as in greater good. And, okay, so the city says that this retention park and pond is supposed to help the neighborhood. Has there ever been flooding in you all's specific area of the neighborhood?
There is flooding in Poeplestown, as exists in many other in-town neighborhoods. The flooding is caused by the highways, runoff from the highways.
Which highways?
75, 85.
Okay.
Which are two major highways that intersect in downtown Atlanta, as well as the 65 acres of parking lot around Turner Field. So that's where a lot of the flooding originates. Where it pools is in Poeplestown and other in-town neighborhoods. And so instead of addressing it where it originates, they want to address it where it pools and displace people in the process. So even if they were to build this park and pond, it's only going to address the flooding that occurs on half of this block. In certain parts of Poeplestown, it's not going to address the broader problem of flooding in Summerhill, Poeplestown, Mechanicsville, and other in-town neighborhoods. So it's a bad plan and a bad fix.
Okay, so basically it's a Band-Aid.
On a cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what are the plans for December 1st, and what do you hope the outcome will be?
Mr.
Our plan for December 1st is to go and meet with Mayor Kasim Reed, who has agreed to meet with us on our terms. Last time we met on his terms, because he changed the terms in the middle of the meeting. So our plan is to go and let him know that we're planning to stay in our homes. We didn't come to negotiate on selling our homes. And we want him to know that as long as it takes, we will stay in our homes. whatever it takes for him to do what he need to do to work around us is his choice.
So the plan is you will still be here after December 1st.
Correct.
Okay.
For as long as we want to stay. And I think it's important to know that, we have been holding press conferences and rallies, and we have a petition signed by over 5,000 people standing against displacement, and we put a lot of pressure on the mayor to make a decision that our 93-year-old neighbor, who Mr. Darden referenced, would be able to stay in her home on this block. So the mayor has decided that one person can stay, and that the plan could be worked around that one person, and that was an executive decision that he made in response to public pressure. And we are now asking him, or actually demanding, that he do the same thing for the remaining residents, the Jardins and myself, who wish to stay. If one person can stay on a block without frustrating the city's plans, then the rest of us can stay. Her home is closer to the middle of the block. The Jardins and I book in the block. I'm the first house. They're the last house. Surely the plan can be re-engineered to accommodate us as well and address the flooding.
And tell me, why is this issue beyond Poeplestown? Why is this bigger than Poeplestown?
Well, it's bigger than Poeplestown because it's major development that's coming through here. It's gentrification, the Turtle Field Stadium, the Braves are leaving, and it's major development that's coming through this community that may not benefit us. And it's more about gentrification. I call it an ethnic cleansing. This was the most stable part of our community. A lot of black homeowners, families grew up in this community. I recently witnessed one of my colleagues whose grandmother's house is affected by this, and how it took an emotional toll on her when it really hit her that her grandmother's house, her childhood memories, where her family, grew up at and she grew up at, and, learned values, it's gonna all be gone by eminent domain. And if it's eminent domain on this street, who say it's not gonna be the next street and the next street, that affects more than the families around here, So I just question that it's just really about the flooding, and that problem could have been resolved years ago. So why now? So I think it has a lot to do with the major development that's coming around here. And I've been here for 20-something years and seen the Braves Stadium, the Olympics come that displaced thousands of people. When the highways came, it displaced people and families and destroyed homes. And here it goes again. So I'm not sure if this is the only choice, or it's definitely not the best choice to displace families, because it's destroying the community and memories, So that's how I feel about it. So it's bigger than just what happens around here. It's going to affect the whole Atlanta, and I think that has a lot to do with the redevelopment that's going on in this community, gentrification.
And to your point, homes are not just things that you buy. It's not just things that your local tax commissioner appraises of value to. Homes are places where we bond, where we form relationships. So our homes cannot necessarily be captured in a dollar value. Also, property is a great source of generational wealth to pass on. And it seems like in a lot of cities, there's a history of diminishing that generational wealth, particularly as it pertains to black people.
Yeah, and I think that the displacement that we're seeing in Atlanta to make room for the Falcon Stadium and some other quote-unquote amenities that are going to raise property values are being created at the expense of communities of color. And I don't think that's just Atlanta. I think that's Washington, D.C. I think that's Philadelphia. I think that's happening in New York. It's happening all across the country. People want to move back into the cities, which is fine. We welcome new neighbors, but don't displace the neighbors who have been living there. And so just like, if we don't fight, we allow the city to create a precedent where they can just come in and take property under threat of eminent domain. we, in our resistance, are trying to create a precedent of communities bonding together and fighting back and saying, no, you cannot have our property. And I think it's important for us to do that. And so we're hoping that this fight and this campaign, that we want other people to join us in, to make phone calls to the mayor of Atlanta, to tell him that these people should stay, and for him to do the right thing will serve as an example in other communities where they are being threatened with displacement. And I just want people to know that just because the city uses the word eminent domain does not mean that it's a done deal. It doesn't mean that it's inevitable. You still have the power under the law to resist and to force the city to go through the process of proving that they are taking that property for a public purpose, and not just to develop it for other people to enjoy while the original residents are displaced.
And so what would your call of action be for people, one, that live in the city of Atlanta or near Atlanta, and then what would your call of action be for people that may not necessarily be residents in the city, but how can they add bandwidth to your energy to keep your homes?
Well, today we are fighting to stay in our neighborhood and in our home. Tomorrow, it just may well be you. So be careful and pray for us. Pray for us that we'll be able to stay. Because if it was you, we'll band and bond with you to help you win the fight that you're in. I do believe that we will be able to stay, and we're going to have to fight. Ain't no doubt about it. We're going to have to fight. But we are equipped for this battle. For this battle is not ours. The Lord will help us to win if we stay in. You can't win it unless you're in it. We are planning on staying in it. And I do believe God will give us a positive influence outcome with it. But we got to stay. And we got to let the mayor know that we're not afraid to fight.
And
we haven't, as a black race of people, we haven't got anything without fighting for it. And we will fight. And there are things happening on the north side of town, Buckhead specifically. They didn't do in Buckhead what they're trying to do here. They worked around, they came up with another solution. They can do the same thing here. And we will, I do believe we will win, but we gotta fight and we gotta stay in it.
And part of that fight is really on December 1st, if people are local, to come down to City Hall on the Trinity side of City Hall at 9:30 in the morning and support us. We're gonna have a rally and followed by a press conference, and then we're going into the mayor's office for our meeting. We hope to have hundreds of people sitting with us in the waiting room while we wait for my meeting and the meeting that the Dardens are going to also have with the mayor. If they are not local, we would ask that they call the mayor's office and demand that he do the right thing, that he do the same thing for the Dardens and myself that he did for Miss Jackson in allowing her to stay, since he has that executive power to make it, to exercise it on our behalf. And we really hope that we'll get the support, because this is not a singular fight. It's not, we've got organizations, we've got community leadership like Ms. Sharice working with us, and we need people, the people who are watching this, to help us stand in resistance to the plans that the mayor has for our homes.
Okay.
And this is a call to action, so allies are very important, and you can't help if you can't be there in person, to call, to share the email, to get everybody involved, because this is everybody fight. It's bigger than just condemnation. It's gentrification. It's just a lot of things, and I don't think everything has come up to the forefront. and have been really proven. So we're here to stand up. We want a better neighborhood, but we want our same neighbors. No to displacement.
Yes, so this has been Renee Robinson with FinancialJuneteenth.com, and you've heard the case for Poeplestown and the residents of Poeplestown to stay in their homes from the Dardens, from Ms. Washington, and from Ms. Sharice. So only time will tell what Mayor Kasim Reed of Atlanta decides to do, but hopefully it will be to their favor and they will stay in it. And this is a rich history that they will be able to pass on to their children and to the next generation. Thank you. Until next time, have a great one.